It feels like fall weather over here for us.
Yeah.
It's cooler. It's been cooler this week.
Must be nice.
Charlie's like, it's low triple digits. Low triple digits.
It was 101 today.
It's only going to be 96 today.
That's pretty good.
Bust out that sweatshirt.
Yeah.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.
Ow, ow! What's up, my juice lovers? Oh, wrong sound. Welcome to Goodnature Radio. This is your host, Charlie Wetlaufer, joined by the two top juice business consultants in the world, Chef Ari Sexner and Olivia Esquivel. They're also our superstar instructors on the Goodnature School of Juice. Use code GNRadio for $100 off any course. That is unbelievable. $100 free. Goodnature Radio is the weekly Friday podcast where the juice industry comes to get help for starting and growing a juice bar or juice delivery or other juice business. School of Juice. Nope, I already said that. All right. So today we've got a great episode for you today. We've got a couple voicemails to run through. We're going to talk a little bit about what to do when you see declining sales, and also how to think about wholesale pricing when selling to grocery stores and whatnot. Before we get into that, I just want to mention that we sent out an email yesterday. We have lowered our pallet pricing on our premium glass bottles. So check that out on the Goodnature Marketplace. And if you're ordering multiple pallets, we can also work with you a bit on pricing there. And we are now shipping pallets of bottles internationally. So if you're been waiting and waiting and waiting to finally be able to buy Goodnature premium glass juice bottles because you don't live in the U.S., you can now do that. Head over to goodnature.com. And if you are international or buy multiple pallets, there's a link on the product listing there to request a quote, and we'll work with you on the shipping and freight charges. All right. So let's get into the first voicemail from our Olivia. I think it's a client of yours, Heidi.
Yay. Heidi, yes.
Hello, my name is Heidi Clark, and I own Wealthy Juice Company in Springfield. Big shout out to Olivia. She really helped me with my brand and my logo, and everybody loves it. My question is about wholesale pricing. I've had a few different grocery stores reach out inquiring about wholesale, and I'm just not quite sure how to price that. Any help would be appreciated. Thanks.
All right. So anytime someone asks this question, the very first thing we always say is make sure you check the local regulations about wholesaling raw juice, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to start supplying a grocery store with a bunch of raw juice, and then 2 weeks later they get an inspection and the health department tells them that they can't do it anymore. So you definitely want to check with that first. Ari, do you have any tips on sort of looking into that before you start wholesaling juice?
Yeah. One of the biggest keys, like every county is different. Every regulator has different requirements. The thing that's usually helps is try to maintain retail, which means you're collecting the money for that sale. You know, if there's a way to do that. Also, most likely you'll be needing a HACCP plan to be able to transport the juice. But, I mean, as soon as you sell that product to someone, it's their responsibility. So it's really important to make them aware that they're going to have requirements they're going to need to do as well. You know, rather than just set it on the shelf, they're also going to have to take the temperatures, make sure it's everything's working properly and it's being kept safe for the consumer.
Yeah, I guess that's the point I was trying to make is the grocery store may not even be aware of what they're supposed to do handling raw juice. So just because a grocery store wants your product doesn't necessarily mean they necessarily understand the regulations and everything. So definitely be careful about that. But assuming that's all good and you get the approval, Olivia, I think you've had these kind of relationships before, right? With local companies?
I have.
So
and
how do you...
I was going to say, it may take you 8 years to get caught and get pulled off the shelf, but they're coming for you.
Yeah, for sure.
Just, as was the case with me. So I enjoyed 8 years of big sales for that, but now I'm no longer in the grocery store because Department of Ag finally decided they wanted to pay a visit. But I will say that I think that what you can turn around and wholesale to other grocery stores, I think you're going to find that it's not a huge money maker. For me, it's more about getting the brand out there. But again, it goes back to what your food cost is. The better food cost you have, the more margin you have. So if you're working with a 20% food cost because Chef Ari did your recipes for you and you're rocking and rolling and you know what you're actually, what your product is costing you and what you're selling, then you can make more margin on the wholesale side. For me, I never had great food costs. So, if I sold a bottle of retail juice in my shop at $10, it only really made sense for me to sell it to the grocery store at $7. So they're only making $3, which is not normal. Most grocery stores and retail stores are used to what's called Keystone, which is half. So, if I require that they sell it at 10, then I would sell it to them at 5 and they would make the $5. I can only really do that if selling it at 5 is making me money. So on the front end, I would say make sure that you're working with Chef Ari on your recipes and that you've got good food costs. I would make sure that your relationship is stable and such that you would say, give them some rules about your brand in writing that say, either are you going to buy product back that's not selling? I've done that sometimes when I've really wanted the account. I've sort of taken the onus on myself and said, look, I will monitor the case for you. I will make sure that we don't give you expiring juice. I will come and see it every 2 days. I will rotate the juices for you, and anything that doesn't sell, I'll buy back. Again, make sure that you have the HACCP plan and all that set in place. I mean, some nice things that you can do is you can take that if you're within close quarters and you can take it back to your shop and sell it. If you have, higher foot traffic at your shop. I have a smaller retail store and I do that. They're closed for the weekend. So whatever's not selling, I grab it on Thursday and I bring it to my shop and I resell it and I know it's going to get gone by the weekend. But I think it's going to depend on what your margin is. I wouldn't expect, you're not printing cash on this. It's really more about getting your brand out there, making a couple bucks covering your cost and allowing them to make a couple of bucks. But I will say somebody has to be checking the dates. That's not going to be a product that they're used to checking. They put milk out there. It usually has 30 plus days on there. They are probably not used to having a stockist check dates every 2-3 days. So the last thing you want is your brand out there with a juice bottle that's expired and somebody's buying an expired juice, because at the end of the day, the bottle says your name, not the grocery store's name. And that's what the guest is going to remember. So it's a little tricky. It's not a huge money maker, but it is really great for the brand.
Yeah. If you were approached with this kind of deal and you're going to go for it, do you think it might make sense to either pick 1 or 2 recipes that you have that are very high margin, or even develop like a new recipe to launch with them or something that you can make your margin on when you're only selling to them for $5?
I've talked to some clients that have kind of found some success with this. I think there's 2 things that are really important is, of course, your food cost, so that you're at the proper margins to be able to sell it. So you can offer, say you're typically sell for 20-30%, you could offer them at like a 40% food cost to you, but also make sure you're set up for production. You don't want to be taking on these orders when it's taking you a long time for labor. You want to make sure you have the proper equipment like an X1 to be able to produce bulk, but those recipes are extremely important. The people that have really done a great job with this usually have a cool like pamphlet, you know, where a printout that they could share, or PDF that they could share with people that are interested. And I would do, like you just mentioned, Olivia, you know, have like terms that they need to kind of comply with, you know, having like, they need to make sure that they're checking a product for like a 4 or 5 day shelf life. They're monitoring the temps throughout the day. And also you can list kind of like the MSRPs and their cost for the bottles, you know, which will be great for them. But I would definitely try to avoid having different flavors unless it's a special event, because you're looking to just produce extra amounts of what you're already doing and have it sold, you know. And it can get challenging if maybe not if you have 1 or 2 people doing a couple specialty flavors to get them in the door. But then after you bring in more and more clients, it gets really tricky and labor just skyrockets. So, and you get with Olivia too and have some awesome branding that they can have displayed by there. And it could be great for both sides of the operation.
Yeah,
So
that's a really good point. Sorry, Charlie. I was just going to say about the MSRP. I meant to say that. Yes, make sure you have an MSRP, but then make sure you have a rule about you don't ever want them selling your product less than what you sell it. And if they have to put it on sale, then give them rules about when they should put it on sale. On the last day, the day before the product goes out, and that this would be the price that you could sell it at. And of course, that's going to depend on whether you're buying it back or whether you're not.
That makes sense. Yeah, so it sounds like it's not just like, hey, I'm going to sell some juice at the grocery store. You really have to think through it as like a new program. Like you're sort of like launching a wholesale program, and you have to think about all the different aspects of it. So Olivia, this is something you could help somebody with, right? If they needed help coming up with like a little wholesale program for their local grocery store.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, and Chef is right. Like the marketing about it is so important. You know, the one of the grocery stores that I was in is a really big grocery store, very popular in my town, and they do a really good job of promoting every single farmer and owner. It's like a local farmers market that's open all the time, and so they had cute little signs with like my picture on it that said like "Meet your farmer," like sometimes that you see. At Whole Foods, it would say meet your farmer or meet your producer or whatever. And that was great. One of the things that I also did there was had my own little mini fridge that was wrapped with a design that we designed that we could do for you. And so people knew they were coming straight for me, because remember, a grocery store is going to have coolers and coolers and coolers. And it's really hard for your 2, 3, or 4 SKUs to stand out from boxed water and LaCroix and all these other things that are going to be in there. They're going to be really wide and really deep. So almost like, giving it a hero moment in its own cooler that's branded. I had one that was up on, really high on a shelf. I provided that and I stocked it. I could control the message. So I think the flavors are important, picking ones that are best sellers, picking ones that people are looking for, typically like your 4th or 5th seller isn't something you want to put in there. Shots are great, things with a long shelf life. But yeah, we can absolutely help you put together a wholesale program for that. If you can get it going, it's a great way to maybe not make a ton of cash on it, but it's a great way to get revenue in.
Cool. All right. The next voicemail we have is from a gentleman named Priyank in Canada.
Hello, Goodnature family. This is Priyank from Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. I own a juice store in Saskatoon, which is in business for last 10 years. For last couple of years, I have seen decline in the juice sales specifically. I'm not sure if this is something happening in the market due to inflation, or there is certain things I may need to improve to increase the sales back again. Your guidance would be helpful. I do love this podcast, and thank you for doing this weekly. Thanks.
All right. So, facing declining sales, what kind of things can we look at? Olivia?
It's a good question, but it also can be a difficult one without really knowing a snapshot of what his business looks like. Like declining by how much? Is it declining seasonally? Has he not refreshed his menu in a while? Is it just stale?
Is there
Maybe he's
local
talking
competition, or
right? Is there new local competitions? Are things getting stale? Is he seeing an increase in bowls and smoothies instead? Is he doing cleanses? So there's a lot of like layers to that onion that I would peel back. But the first thing I would say is, even if we're having a decline in sales, I go back to food cost. And it's funny that I always talk about this because I'm like the worst culprit of it. Even Ari asked me today, Olivia, how's your food cost? It's not great, but at least I know what it is.
At least I know it's bad.
At least I know it's bad. But, you know, it's, I was talking to somebody today that does an elderberry, you know, and she's seeing a decrease in sales there in her 12 ounces. But I said, okay, well, let's look, if elderberry is expensive. Okay. So if we're seeing a decrease in sales, what else can we do with that ingredient to present it in different ways? It's like when you have a kid and a child and they tell you, don't, discount a food that your child doesn't like until you've presented to him 21 different ways, right? Like an egg, like fried egg, scrambled egg. Like, so how many different ways can we present it until we really know that that's not working in our shop? So can you do an elderberry shot? Can you do an elderberry enhanced water? Can you do things to maybe you have a $12, 16 ounce elderberry concoction and you have a $5 shot and maybe a $5 elderberry water, you know, the guy that's buying the water at $5, they know they're not getting as much elderberry as the $11 or $12 juice, but they're still getting elderberry. So is there a way that even if we're having decline in sales and maybe that one SKU, can we present it in different ways? That maybe, quite honestly, that water is probably way more profitable for us than the 12 ounce elderberry juice to begin with. So, you know, just kind of how can we flip it? How can we be a spin doctor and find ways to make money or make more money on less things that we're selling, even if our sales volume is going down, making a larger margin or a better profit to keep us kind of hanging on until sales ramp back up again.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I think really it's troubleshooting is the most important thing to do in any operation, you know, because if you're looking at the overall operation, it's declining in sales. It's impossible to pinpoint what the issue is. Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of break it down in different categories. Yeah. You know, are you still having the same amount of customers and you're still declining sales? Maybe it's, you know, the inflation. You know, it's most likely the inflation. That is the issue. Maybe your decline in sales could be the menu. You know, you can spruce it up. There's more competition. People are familiar or kind of maybe you need to have more in certain categories or update them with seasonal items. So really just breaking it down as simple as possible, seeing what has changed in that time period from the declining sales, and then just attack that portion. You know, whether it's menu issues and coming up with something creative to get people back in the door, starting to offer cleanses, especially being in Canada, there's, you got to have cleanses, especially as cold weather markets during the, you know, declining sales of maybe the smoothies. That's where you can really ramp up those cleanse sales, you know, so really just kind of break everything down in smaller portions. Give us a call, you know, myself or Olivia, and we can kind of talk about maybe the differences that have happened. It could be something very simple where you can get a huge increase right away.
Those are always my favorite calls because it's like, again, like peeling back the layers of the onion, right? They're like, Olivia, like, how do I get more sales? I'm like, well, okay, wait a minute. Like, it's not like I have like the secret answer in my pocket that I'm just like waiting for you to pay a check to get the answer. Like, it's really so particular for every single juice bar. Like, one of my clients has major construction going on, so nobody can get through to her shop. Okay, well, that's obvious. So we need to, you know, that's a blinding, glaring situation. We need to, you know, get to social media. We need to get some signage outside. We need to, you know, hoot and holler at the city to speed this project along.
Paving that road at the midnight, you know?
Yeah, right. And then sometimes they'll say to me, like, my juices have really declined, but my bowls are up. And I'm like, okay, well, let's dig into that. Like, maybe you have too many SKUs in juice, right? You have 3 carrot options. Charlie's going to buy 1 carrot juice. He's not going to buy your 3 flavors at carrot juice. Force him into another category because he's just sitting there like a ding dong. Sorry, Charlie, trying to decide between the 3 carrot juices that you have, right? So how can we sort of create some variety in that? And I see that a lot, like repetition of, you know, I saw a menu the other day that Ari did not create that had one particular ingredient that wasn't even like a ginger or something that you're used to seeing in apple. It was like a really particular ingredient, and it was in damn 4 of the 8 juices. And I was like, Jesus, not everybody likes that ingredient. Like, that's not even a big seller. So, making sure that you don't have too many SKUs or too few SKUs, I think, is important. And if you're seeing that something like smoothies or bowls or toast or something is dominating sales, then I guarantee you there's a reason for that. Either your quality has gone down on your juices, your pricing is off, something's wrong with the recipes or the variety that you're offering, or somebody in your shop is talking about smoothies and bowls and not talking about juices. Because 8 out of 10 times, every single person that comes through that store, at least through my door, they're holding my made-to-order menu of bowls and smoothies. They don't even realize that there's a cooler of juice there, and they're like, what juice should I get? And I'm like, well, as you can see on that menu, that's the smoothie menu. The juices are over here. Let's talk about that. I mean, it's mind-blowing how many people buy a smoothie and think they're getting a juice. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But, they will always say, well, what should I get? Well, what's your favorite? Well, I'm always going to point to the juice, but some of my girls are going to point to smoothies and bowls. So if you're not in there in the shop making sure that you're really reading that customer and that guest and getting them to the actual category that they want to be in, then probably your people are just pushing them to one category. And that's why you're seeing, some sales decline in some of your kind of mainstay categories.
Makes sense. Yeah. And just a broader question, I think he was kind of asking, like, are juice sales declining? I'd say no.
Yeah, no.
I think there was definitely a little bit of a peak during COVID. Mm-hmm. Well, that was a kind of a mixed bag too, though, because I was hearing a lot of juice bars were saying, oh, the sales are better than they've ever been. And then others were saying, we're dead. I don't know where everybody is. Nobody's coming out. I think it was really location dependent. But I would just say, like, based on the bottle sales and stuff, I see that juice sales are still really healthy. At least here in the U.S. I'm not sure about other countries, but
during that time, there was a lot of operations that were really impressive to be able to just switch over and change stuff to make those adjustments. It was really impressive. Going with large portion size shots and people. I remember people were selling groceries out of their juice bar and stuff.
Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah, there was a lot of press or that buy program a lot of people were doing where you could purchase shots for like nurses and doctors and stuff. But
give back programs.
A lot of stuff is cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of innovation and the ability to switch to, running out to the curb or doing delivery and
or having an app.
It was, it was really interesting. But yeah, the juice market in general still seems pretty healthy. So yeah, it's probably something specific about either local area or a specific juice bar or whatnot. But Ari and Olivia are here to help. Give them a call. I'm sure they'd be happy to take your sales up and beyond your wildest imagination. And with that, I think we can wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for a good episode. See y'all next Friday.
See y'all then.
Bye, guys.
Peace.
Bye.
It's another Friday. This week I did it my way. I made lots of juice, and now I feel a boost. Baby say, oh, it's the way I make my juice. Pressing fruits and roots. This week I did it my way. Baby say, oh, now let's have some fun. There is nothing greater than Fridays at Goodnature.